Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
36 years ago, this happened. I had one beer, right? I had one beer. Well, you think it was, nope, it was one beer. Oh, good. How did you get home? I don't remember. How'd you get there? I don't remember. Where is the place? I don't remember. How many years ago was it? I don't know. I don't know. What neighborhood was it in? I don't know. Where's the house? I don't know. Upstairs, downstairs, where was it? I don't know. But I had one beer. That's the only thing I remember. And a man's life is in tatters. A man's life is shattered. His wife is shattered. His daughters, who are beautiful, incredible young kids, they destroy people. They want to destroy people. These are really evil people.
The roar of the grease paint and the smell of the crowd. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. I mean, welcome to. To me, it's one gigantic serial that I've been doing all of these years. And last night, Trump gave a speech in front of a crowd. And while he is right about what he said about Dr. Fraud, the optics are awful. He went off the rails. Now, mind you, I'll repeat what I said. He's 100% right in what he said about Dr. Fraud. He does everything right from the heart. And since this whole Ford Kavanaugh thing began, he's been very measured in his comments. He really didn't take sides, always defended Kavanaugh and always giving credence to Dr. Fraud. And he then even acquiesced to Democrats in waiting another week so the FBI could investigate these claims. Again, I want to repeat, Trump is right about what he just said last night, but the optics are awful. He went off the rails. You see, in front of an adoring crowd in Mississippi, he mocked Dr. Fraud's testimony to the tremendous applause. We heard it. And what happened? Every newscast led with this. All of the twisted media outlets, all the twisted sisters in the news business, were having panel discussions on Trump's horrible treatment of a sexual abuse survivor. He gave them the fodder they were looking for. Now, this doesn't affect solely the media or the Democrats, but Demon Cat voters who are already looking to take out Republicans and the Demon Cat fringe activists who are loudly confronting Republicans everywhere they can run into them. It also feeds reasons for guys like Jeff Flakester and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski to not support Kavanaugh in a vote on the floor. I think it was a terrible miscalculation on the president's part. And I have to ask, why does he do this? Why is it that when President Trump is in the White House setting, he controls himself, but when he gets in front of a crowd, he makes believe, or he sounds as though he's speaking on a telephone to a television personality who calls him all the time? And I think that's the problem. I think what happens is he goes off the phone from this TV personality, goes on a stage after getting pumped up by him, and thinks he's on television when he's not. He has to think about the consequences of what he is saying. And so, as I say to you, this is a very difficult time to be in the media, especially when I, Michael Savage, am the Switzerland of talk radio. Write that one down. I declare myself the Switzerland of talk radio. Why do I say I'm the Switzerland of talk radio? Well, for one, I'm not a registered Republican. I never have been. In fact, I don't go to Republican events. I generally don't like Republicans. However, in the times that we are in, there's no clearer choice than ever as to the safer party for most Americans, and that is certainly not the lying, filthy, degenerate Democrats, to be very blunt. And this is a hard one for me to say, and I know I'm going to be attacked for it, but since I'm the Switzerland of talk radio, I have to do this. Both sides are lying right now. For example, just today, America's so-called anchorman, a man who calls himself America's anchorman, went on the air, and he said only he pointed out the girly up voice of Dr. Fraud. That was crazy. I was the first one to talk about it. But here's the part that gets me, and I have to say it. Apparently, this anchorman is deaf, and he can't hear, or at least can't hear very well. So how could he have even heard Dr. Fraud? and then get up and say only he's an expert on voice recognition, which, by the way, is my line from several years ago. It was almost verbatim stolen from me when I said a few years ago, I'm an expert in voices, is what I do for a living. I have a great sense of voice recognition. So if the conservatives or the right wing are lying about things like this, they also lack credibility. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Now, we could scream all we want about Dr. Fraud lying, and she's apparently lying. She was set up and coached to lie by the fraudulent Democrats. Her own ex-boyfriend said she coached a friend on how to take a polygraph. The woman committed perjury in front of the world, and we're all outraged. But when you get people on the other side of the aisle saying that they heard her say this in the up-girl voice, and they know, and you know the man can't hear it all, and it's very sad, what does that tell you about people on the other side? Both sides are filled with fraudsters. It's a terrible time to be the Switzerland of talk radio. I'll tell you that right now. And the phone number here is, what's the difference what my phone number is? What's the difference that I'm producing a book that'll be out Tuesday called Stop Mass Hysteria? What is the difference? I mean, I know you're going to go buy it. My hardcore audience will buy it. You'll never see it on Fox News because they're part of the cartel, which is a shame. Not all conservatives are a member of that cartel. They also are blocked from faux news, which, by the way, is going through a big change now that Lachlan Murdoch took it over. You're going to see heads rolling out of that studio. He's a super liberal from London. He does not want some of the people who are on Fox News to remain, and they've known the axe was going to fall one day. Wait until you see what happens in the next few months. I don't know what they're going to do once they get off faux news. I don't know where they're going to go. What, CNN? MSNBC? I don't know where they're going to find a job. I guess they could always get 2 Dixie cups and a string and a video camera and podcast themselves. And then they'll find out what it is to be obscure in America when they had the chance to open themselves up to a man who tells the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help him God, and they chose to ignore him while so many people listen to him. They'll find out what it is to be on the outside one day. And as I said to you last week, let God seek vengeance. I don't. I never have and I never will. You know, they're now accusing Kavanaugh of being angry and not having the temperament to be on the Supreme Court. Where'd that one come from? Well, Dr. Dianne Fraudstein's false accusations fell apart on them. Senator Fraudstein's accusations blew up in their face. They demanded an FBI investigation, and the Republicans called their bluff and said, okay, we'll give you one. Now that the investigation's about to be hidden, and they won't even release that one. That's a big one. Why are all the senators saying don't release the investigation? What a lie they're putting out. McConnell now is saying, no, don't release the FBI investigation of Kavanaugh. We agree with Senator Fraudstein. Why? Well, what are the Republicans doing? Are they catering to her now? Now, in other words, the FBI investigation probably exonerated Kavanaugh from these charges of rape and such. So why are they not releasing it? So what have they done? They've now come up with a new tack to attack him. He doesn't have the temperament to be on the Supreme Court. Now, I want to ask everyone listening. Let's say you were just excoriated in public, ripped apart, lied about, destroyed, and you get up now and you meet some of those accusing you. What would you say to them? Thank you? Or you'd be angry? So they're saying his angry, meaning showing his maleness, showing his humanity in essence, is a sign that he's not fit to be on the Supreme Court. How much crazier can it get than what these folks are doing on the evil Democrat side? And I'll tell you, the man who's... These hearings have been good for America in many ways. We've got to see the faces of evil. We've seen the pure faces of evil and vacuity. Kamala Harris, they said, was going to run for the presidency. I can guarantee you America sees that she's an empty skirt. She's seen to be what she is, a vacuous individual, nothing there. There's nothing there. She was a small-town prosecutor who was handpicked by the Democrat machine, and they ran her up the flagpole. She's gone. I can guarantee you she'll go nowhere. She's too vacuous. Another one who flamed out is Cory Booker. Called himself Spartacus. He had a Spartacus moment. But he went further. He's shown himself to be actually idiotic. I want you to listen to Cory Booker. Listen to this carefully. He says that Kavanaugh's guilt or innocence doesn't matter. He should be forced out right now, irrespective of whether he's guilty or innocent. Now, this means Cory Booker believes not in the rule of law, but in the rule of the lawless and in the rule of the mob and in mob rule. How can anyone vote for this man? So I think both of them have now disqualified themselves for any serious consideration beyond what they already are doing. Here is Cory Booker saying that Mr. Kavanaugh, his guilt or his innocence doesn't matter. Listen to him in 2003. Astonishing.
When his temperament has been revealed in an emotional moment where he used language that frankly shocked a lot of us. And then ultimately, not whether he's innocent or guilty, this is not a trial, but ultimately has enough questions be raised that we should not move on to another candidate.
This is beyond comprehension. So they've been found out to be liars in attempting to pin the tail on him, saying he was a rapist and a this and a that. That didn't fly. So now they're saying because he reacted to being smeared, he's not qualified to be in the Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen of the Savage jury, let me ask you something. If you had been publicly excoriated, humiliated, lied about, and you had a chance to answer some of these questions, what would you have done? Sat there like a moron? You wouldn't have gotten angry? What would you want out of a human being? And by the way, what do you think the temperament is of Ruth Bader Ginsburg behind the closed doors? You think she doesn't scream and yell at people? You think that witch has not used her temper tantrums from the day they foisted her on the American public? Are you joking? You're telling me that the man overreacted? He didn't even overreact. Imagine if it was me, what I would have said to them. I wouldn't have sat there and taken it. I would have shown them what a temper is. I would have exposed them for what they're vulnerable with. I wouldn't have sat there and taken that after they ripped me and my family to shreds. So this is the world we're living in. It's very difficult for all of us. I know many of you are past the point of no return with regard to your emotional stability right now, because you're watching a public lynching of a man who you know never committed those crimes. Do you remember what they actually said about him? A train gang rape? And it turned out that she was represented by the slimiest thing with a law degree the world has ever seen. Someone who represented a filthy, dirty, degenerate, over-the-hill pole dancer. You want anger? I'll give you some today. I'll let you have a little bit more. And while I'm at it, let me ask you another question about this wonderful media that you left-wing drug addicts seem to love so much. There's a guy on television, an absolutely talentless hack named Jimmy Kimmel. He actually had the stripper on, and he brought out a tray of mushrooms and said which one is most closely resembles the president's penis. This is on major network television. Let me close with a very chilling statement, because my book, Stop Mass Hysteria, shows you what happens when you reach a fever pitch of liars and sickness and degeneracy like this. Jimmy Kimmel, in what he did last night, has hit the lowest point in American television history. Germany once went through a degeneracy like this. It was called the Weimar Republic. Pornography, rampant sexuality, sex clubs. Do you know what it led to? Adolf Hitler through mass hysteria.
Savage.
It's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of. This is a very, very
Well, let's cut it
time.
off there.
What's
He's
happening?
1,000. Thank God we have someone speaking for us in that way. I want to talk for a minute about groupthink. It's very important you understand what groupthink is and how it relates to mass hysteria. Yesterday, I spent a little time from my book, Mass Hysteria, talking about the Salem witch trials, and I showed you how hysteria spread and how it led to deaths. And we're watching the Salem witch trials all over again. I'm calling them now not the Salem witch trials, but the CNN witch trials. And I want to talk now about groupthink. Psychiatrist Carl Jung believed that it takes an hysteric to cause hysteria. He wrote that in both Perpetrator and Victim, a constant tendency to make himself interesting and produce an impression is a basic feature of the hysteric. The corollary of this is his proverbial suggestibility, his proneness to another person's influence. So I want to talk about groupthink, first coined by author George Orwell in his prescient masterpiece 1984. But the term groupthink was co-opted by the psychological community in the early 1950s. And I'll not go into the details now. The important thing for you to remember here is that under groupthink, personal opinions, essential points of view, even questions are no longer welcome. That's what's going on in our colleges today. The result is a so-called in-group that feels it can do no wrong and is impervious to outside criticism. It feels both justified and moral in attacking any out-group. So, for example, the anti-Israel groups on campus are an example of these fascistic groupthink organizations, run mainly by radical feminists along with radical Muslims on college campuses. That is an example of fascist-like groupthink. The difference between groupthink and mass hysteria is time. The former takes a while to congeal. The latter can happen overnight. Groupthink among the Nazi hierarchy produced a policy of anti-Semitism. Mass hysteria among the populace enabled the Holocaust. Now, more recently, groupthink allowed the press and nearly half the electorate to speak no ill of Barack Obama and to speak calumnies of outgroup members like myself for pointing out his grave and divisive shortcomings. Groupthink has given free passes to anyone who is not a member of the in crowd, meaning the radical feminist screamers in America. Right now, groupthink and mass hysteria dominate college campuses where conservative or traditionalist voices are shut down by shrill fascists. Shouting mobs, new violence, all condoned by Nancy Pelosi when she said we're all of the same type. We're all the same type. So they've been whipping them on, and now we're seeing the whirlwind. If you have a student in your home who has been brainwashed, you, of all people, need to buy Stop Mass Hysteria and have it in your house and talk to your daughter before she's lost to you forever.
Savage.
You know the whole picture. This has been going on since the 60s. They made billions of dollars fomenting revolution, chaos, degeneracy with no consequences. And look who's in the offices now. Look what's now. It doesn't matter whether he's innocent or guilty, says this creature Cory Booker. Doesn't matter whether Kavanaugh is innocent or guilty. It's time to remove him. Put someone else in. Would you ever believe that a man would say that as sitting U.S. Senator? I would say he's not fit for office. But I'm living in the twilight zone compared to the American people. If we put up with a Cory Booker who says Kavanaugh's guilt or innocence doesn't matter, just move him aside and get someone else. And he's still a U.S. Senator. And then you got the Senate itself, this kangaroo court. Both sides now saying that they're not going to even release this FBI report. They're not even going to release it to the public after they dragged this man through over hot coals. And now we're reading today. They're going to cut off debate on the Kavanaugh nomination today, Wednesday, which should set up a critical Friday vote. You know what Dr. Frankenstein is going to say. You know what Dr. Frankenstein is going to say, that there wasn't enough time. You know that Dr. Frankenstein and her cohorts will say, wait a minute now, we haven't had a chance to analyze these FBI studies. Dr. Frankenstein and cohorts will say, the 302s collected by the FBI are not enough. We need more. We need more. We need more time. You know what they're doing. They're running out the clock, if you're a sports fan. What the Dems are doing are running out the clock to the election where they, at least to the educated people I know in the media, the Dems are going to win a lot of seats in the House. However, the reverse is true, according to someone I know who's very smart, and they actually think the Dems are going to lose some seats. Would you believe it? There's liable to be more Republican senators come November. But they're gambling that they're going to have more political control, and they just want to run out the clock until that time. So the FBI has not even interviewed Ford because they heard her. They didn't interview that creature lawyer of hers, Deborah Katz. You know the type, don't you? The Deborah Katz types. You know, the skinny one with the black hair. You know who I'm talking about. And how about that guy on the right with the white beard who put his hand over the mic every 3 minutes? Michael Bromwich, where'd he come from? He goes way back. He's a long-term Politburo member. Are you kidding? They're already screaming there wasn't enough time. Then there's a lawyer for Debbie Ramirez. She didn't have enough time. They're already saying that they didn't have enough time. The FBI didn't do a good enough. Now they're attacking the FBI. First, they attacked the Republicans for not having the FBI look into it. Now they're attacking the FBI, saying they didn't do a serious investigation. And the Slimebag lawyer who represents the slippery pole dancer and Julie Sweetneck, or Sweatneck, the one who said about the gang rape and then took it back, but that didn't stop NBC from interviewing her, is now screaming that they didn't interview enough people. So that's the game. Then there's the others on the committee. So what do you think is going to happen now? Tell me what's going to happen. The Republicans will call a halt to it. They'll hold a vote on Friday. Tell me what's going to happen. We pretty much know what's going to happen. Flake is going to flake on the Republicans, even though he said, I will vote with you, he said, if you conduct an FBI investigation. I'm not really a betting man. I don't gamble. I haven't gambled since I was 11 years old when I had a roulette wheel in my house in Queens, New York, and I actually ran the game. Could they bring that up now and have me arrested? I remember I bought a roulette wheel. I was 11 years old, a little black roulette wheel with a green felt thing with numbers, and I had a visor. I ran roulette games in my basement for small stakes. I don't know if it was illegal. I sure enjoyed it, but I wasn't stupid enough to gamble. I ran the house. No, I did, but I got out of my gambling phase when I was 11 because if you study psychology, you'll find out that gambling is an addiction of young boys, young people in the 9 to 11-year-old age group, and that most people outgrow that addiction. They normally outgrow masturbation between the same ages. But some who can't outgrow that act of self-gratification gamble and become degenerate gamblers. So I'm not a gambling man, but I once owned a roulette wheel. But I would gamble that what happens on Friday, I wouldn't say it's 50-50 about Kavanaugh getting approved. Let's say Susan Collins, she's a shaker. She's going the other way. She's going south. Then you got Lisa Murkowski. Unless she gets a new bridge to nowhere in Alaska, she's going south. I mean, if the Republicans are pumping money in their direction, they may vote with them. You know, she gets a new bridge, let's say, to Russia, where Sarah Palin said that she has international experience being from Alaska because she could actually see Russia from the Aleutian Islands. That was a real great choice as vice president. That was brilliant. Just a brilliant choice in her. I know many of you liked her because of her looks, but okay, I get it. She's still a hero of that's good. I never was a Sarah Palin guy. So please don't lump me in. I'm the Switzerland of talk radio right now. And believe me, the insanity we are living through, I'm trying to think in my lifetime, my adult lifetime, I've never seen it. Never seen anything like this mass hysteria. Never, 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 never. You can destroy a man in public, and then when he speaks out, even mildly, you call him unfit for office because he spoke out. And Cory Booker, a sitting U.S. senator, says Kavanaugh is guilty. Whether he's guilty or innocent doesn't matter. He should be withdrawn because he doesn't have the temperament. God, I'd love to see Cory Booker on closed-circuit television on a hidden camera when no one's looking at him. I wonder if he has a temper. I wonder what Dianne Feinstein is like on a closed-circuit, a secret camera. I wonder if she ever raised her voice in any way. I wonder if any of them ever got mad. I don't think so. They're all so above human emotion. So here are the lawgivers. Can you imagine these are the lawgivers of America? People who say a man's guilt or innocence doesn't matter. Get rid of them. These are the lawgivers of America. And you wonder why both the media is hated and the Congress is hated. You do know that, don't you? I'm not making it up. The media is the most hated institution in America, next to Congress. Did you know that? We're talking about the average person out there, without any definition of what their politics are. They actually hate the media. So when you see a guy like Jimmy Kimmel, a psychotic in my estimation, who belongs in Creedmoor State Hospital, it should be reopened just for him with a special Jimmy Kimmel Award. The man had a tray of mushrooms on television last night and asked a dirty, degenerate, low-down stripper which one most approximated the private parts of the President of the United States. And then the laugh track was run by another sick degenerate who makes the Weimar, they are making the Weimar Republic look like something pure compared to what this country has become. This is the most degenerate, sick country in the history of the world. there is no sicker nation on earth than this country. That a network television show could do a thing like this and no reaction. It's just a funny stunt. You know, I've been watching a lot of movies from on Netflix, and most of them I pick to watch are not made in America. And one a couple I've been fascinated with are in Arabic. One was a Turkish drama I became hooked on in Turkish. And now I'm watching one, Al-Haiba, I think, and it's set in Lebanon, on the border of Lebanon and Syria, with a mafia family that's been there for hundreds of years that control an entire district. And, they run the drugs, they run the guns through the district. And what I came to understand something, watching these Arabic dramas. First of all, I love the language. I love to watch it. I like to see the subtitles. None of these films have any sexuality in them, and yet they're captivating. None of the films or TV shows made in Muslim countries show any sex, and yet they're captivating. The women are stunningly beautiful. The men are very roguishly handsome and testosterone-driven, filled with rage the way most real men are, and yet there's no sex shown. There's just a subtle sexuality in all of it through the appearance of the people. But again, no overt sexuality. So as a side note of watching this drama of this Lebanese mafia family in the hills of Lebanon on the border with Syria that I got was almost all of the American mafia movies, the courtliness, the overly courtly nature of the way the gangsters speak in American gangster movies, or used to up until recently, is all directly related to the structure of these Arabic families, incidentally. In other words, when you see the Sicilian mafia type speaking in a courtly manner, which we came to think is highly theatrical, that is derived from the structure of the language and of the families that was laid down by the Arabic invaders of Sicily a long time ago. I'm trying to explain something to you, that even watching a TV drama, you can put the pieces together and see the connections. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with the Kavanaugh hearing. I'm just giving you an observation. The only observation that has any relevance to this time today in what I am discussing in watching this drama in Arabic is, again, there's no sex in it, there's no filth in it, there's no dirty language in it, there's no Fs, nothing. No rubbing of the body parts, no jewels in the teeth, none of that. None of the filth and garbage of the American media today is in it. And yet it's captivating to watch. Now we switch forward to America. Last night hits a new low in the new Weimar America. And a man on television who I think is basically talentless and psychotic. I would say that Jimmy Kimmel, by my estimation, is a mentally ill person, seriously mentally ill. For him to take out a tray with mushrooms on it and ask a degenerate, filthy, pole-dancing, over-the-hill, horse-faced loser which one most approximates the president's private parts, and that network let this run, network didn't censor it, network didn't cancel his show, and wait, it gets even worse. The sponsors didn't cancel the show. The same sponsors that will not advertise on talk radio. I don't know how you buy those products. I don't understand it. Are you telling me progressives buy those cars? No, it's you who buy those cars. This is the irony of the whole thing. You, the audience of conservative media, if you want to call it that, are actually the money earners of America, the taxpayers of America. It's not the millennials. They don't own anything. All they buy are Apple. All they buy is a phone and an undershirt, and maybe condoms. What do they buy, actually, millennials? What do they buy? What is everyone running after them? What do they have? Nothing. They're living in their mother's basement or 16 to a room on Stanton Street like their immigrant great-grandfather did when he came off the boat from wherever he came from. And yet the media runs after the millennial like they're the future of the world. They don't know anything. We know everything. We know everything. We built this world. We built this great world that these interlopers live in, play in, and are soiling. I think I better take a break before I say something I regret.
Savage.
Okay, everyone has home security. Anyone who owns a home has it for sure, a business. And yet, People complain about their home security companies because they're like bad cable companies. And what happens when you call them? You probably spend hours on the phone, then you wait for technicians, and you want to get out of their deal. And you just, I can't take it anymore. You say, uh-oh, I'm stuck in a 3-year contract. You don't need that. No one does. The best way to get out of it is pick up a new system like Simply Safe. They're the best and comprehensive protection for every window, door, and room in your apartment or home. Beautifully designed, looks good anywhere. You can put it in yourself. But most importantly, Simply Safe makes your home safer. It's that simple. No, there are many backups that they have in place to keep you safe. Let's say you lose power, you lose your internet, or someone attacks the system. They've got backups. But the best part is coming. You get 24/7 monitoring with police and fire for just $15 a month. No long-term contracts. I want you to do this. Check it out yourself. Go to simplysafesavage.com, and you're going to get free shipping and free returns. simplysafesavage.com. It's that simple. simplysafesavage.com. So we're talking about the degeneracy in the media. Real degeneracy. I mean, real sickness. Really sick people. And a friend of mine, Jeff Rovin, sends me an email. He says, remember when Steve Allen, Jack Parr, and Johnny Carson elevated the late-night medium with genuine wit? The irony is that this is frat boy behavior by Kimmel, the same conduct the Democrats find so objectionable in Judge Kavanaugh. Think about that. The same kind of stupid, dirty boy jokes, you know, mushrooms that look like the president's private part. I don't find it funny. I find it actually sickening on a national show. I would walk out of a room if someone did. I would call it lowbrow, stupid, idiotic, not funny. But now it's on the networks. And moreover, I guarantee you Nancy Pelosi would trip over her high heels to get on that show. They all do. Why do all the Dems go on that idiot show? Why do they go on that moron show? Who are they appealing to? Why, they're appealing to the same stoned millennials that they think are the future of the Democrat Party. And maybe they are right. Maybe they're right. All I can say is, if they are the future of the Democrat Party, and they're the future of America, there will be no justice. There'll be no peace. There'll be 50 years of warfare. Because I will tell you right now, they're underestimating the old white male in plain English. Let me just make it real simple for you. They're really underestimating the demographic that they think is safe to rip apart every day on our campuses, in jokes, in Hollywood. They keep saying, old white man, old white man, white man, old white man, as if they're dirty words. Well, let me tell you something. There's probably 30 to 40 million old white men in America. And here's the problem for the dimwits. A good portion of these old white men that they keep putting down and taunting and mocking, a good portion of them are armed to the teeth. They're on a hair trigger. A lot of them are current or former military or police. And I don't like the signs of the times. I don't like where this is going. I've asked them to stop it. I have told the left to stop with the old white man stuff. I have told the networks to stop it, to no avail. Instead, they take a degenerate mentality, a mind that belongs in a straitjacket with old-line therapeutic agents such as Thorazine. If they took Kimmel and gave him Thorazine in a straitjacket for a few weeks, and then a little electroshock therapy from the 50s, he might come out a normal human being.
Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. Now, here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
When his temperament has been revealed in an emotional moment where he used language that frankly shocked a lot of us. And then ultimately, not whether he's innocent or guilty, this is not a trial, but ultimately, have enough questions be raised that we should not move on to another candidate.
What questions have been raised about Cory Booker? that should have him resign from the Senate? What questions have been raised about Senator Feinstein that should have her resign from the Senate? Or any one of them? Is he insane? Is this man qualified to be a U.S. Senator, Cory Booker in New Jersey, who's saying that his guilt or innocence doesn't matter? He shouldn't even be nominated, but it's getting worse. Some 6 students at Harvard, it just shows you how low they're going now, how low they're going, and they're lower and lower at Harvard, lower and lower at Harvard. My father-in-law is Harvard Law. He's deceased, U.S. Navy veteran, World War II, a hero. Harvard Law once had a real meaning. My ex-brother-in-law who's deceased, I guess he's still my brother-in-law in heaven. Harvard Law deceased. That's when Harvard Law meant something. That really meant something. Take a look at what they have now at Harvard Law for all the Ivy League, what they're doing. They're culling the lowest level of society. Students file Title IX complaints against Kavanaugh to make sure he can't teach at Harvard Law. Jacqueline L. Kellogg, the class of 19, said that Harvard's policy prohibiting sexual and gender-based harassment should prevent Kavanaugh from teaching at Harvard Law. So she began urging fellow students in her mass hysteria, like the Salem witch hunt, to follow suit over the weekend. So the students, like the good idiots that they are, joined her. 48 of the Salem type of witch hunters at Harvard signed an online petition certifying they filed a Title IX complaint against the nominee. Are you listening? And what is this about? How is this even possible? This is mass hysteria. Kellogg's email to other students included an explanation about the operating procedures and encouraged recipients to reference Harvard's policies barring gender-based harassment. Now listen to this is based upon hearsay evidence that has been proven to be false, but it didn't stop the new witches at Harvard from already condemning Kavanaugh to not teaching there. The university defines gender-based harassment as, quote, now listen carefully to this, verbal, nonverbal, graphic, or physical aggression, intimidation, or hostile conduct based on sex stereotyping, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Now, what does that mean? What is nonverbal? What does nonverbal mean? Now, it's mind, they're reading minds? Ms. Kellogg and Julia B. Weiner, also class of 19, who also signed a petition and filed a complaint against Kavanaugh, both argued the nominee's presence on campus would create a, quote, hostile environment as defined in Harvard guidelines related to sexual harassment. Now you know what I mean by the Salem witch hunt. It's going on at Harvard. The new witches are at Harvard. The new witches are at all these universities. They're engaging in this witch hunt against Kavanaugh based upon a faulty and false testimony. And he's probably going to be found clean as the driven snow by the FBI. It didn't stop them from destroying the man, not only in public, but now they don't want him to teach at Harvard. He cannot teach at Harvard. So what is a Harvard law education worth? Less than zero. It's worth less than zero. This is the savage nation. The politicians are destroying America, along with their friends, the sickos in the media. And again, if you think that I'm alone in this criticism of Congress, of the media, you're mistaken. Every poll, I don't care which side of the aisle it's conducted by, shows the same thing. The respect or the I don't even know the right word. The respect is the wrong word. Their opinion, the average person's opinion of Congress is at an all-time low. The average person's opinion of the media is lower than that of a rat dropping in a New York sewer. People hate the media. And last night, we hit a new low in America. Below that, it actually is worse than anything I've ever seen about the Weimar Republic, which was so degenerate that the average German, who was not an extremist, by the way, you have to understand something about the rise of Hitler. The average German hated Hitler. It was only a small fringe that put Hitler forward. The middle-class German was repulsed by Hitler. But the degeneracy of the Weimar period in Germany reached such a fever pitch that even middle-of-the-road Germans said enough is enough, and they started to rethink their moderate positions. They couldn't take it anymore. So we have no longer any gatekeepers in the media except to block conservatives like me from all outlets in the media. It's still a miracle I'm on the radio. You got to understand something, that I'm still standing here after 25 years of being as graphically honest as any person in the history of this media, and as open as I am, is almost a miracle. It actually is a miracle. It is. God parted the Red Seas from me, in 1994, and here I am. It doesn't mean January is going to be the same. It will not be the same. My show is changing dramatically. 1 hour of radio, 1 hour of a podcast, but many stations that have been desperate to drop me will be dropping this show. Some new ones will come along. I'll be very clear with you. It's all political. Make no mistake about it. And the radio media landscape is going to move in the same direction as Fox News. Center left instead of center right. That's what's going to happen across the media landscape. Center left instead of center right, and they're making a disastrous error on many, many levels. So now we see what happens when you stand up to the establishment. And when the establishment becomes degenerate and sick, and you say nothing about it, you are allowed to function in this society. But if you speak out against it, you yourself become the victim. The truth dies, and along with it, the truth teller. I haven't taken any calls today, and maybe I should. I'd love to discuss these issues of mass hysteria with you. I'd like to discuss what you think of the lawgivers today, what you think of this late-night degenerate psychotic showing a tray full of mushrooms and asking a stripper, a debased stripper, what she thinks, which one most looks like the president's private part. I mean, this is no longer Howard Stern doing this on an obscure radio show and making hundreds of millions of dollars doing so. This is no longer that. This is mainstream television reaching a new low. Where are the advertisers that don't advertise on the Savage Nation? What cars advertise on Jimmy Kimmel's show? What major products advertise on Jimmy Kimmel's show? Why do you buy them? Why do you buy them? Why do you patronize them? Why don't you send emails to those companies and say, that was a new low, I'm not buying your car, I'm not buying this, I'm not buying that, goodbye. Why don't you do that? You have all the power. That's the only thing they understand. The only thing they understand is the bottom line. So I made my point over and over again. The phone number again is 855-400-7282. Now, in my book, Stop Mass Hysteria, and don't get mad at me for talking about my book. No one else will. What do you want me to do? Make believe it doesn't exist? It's the best book ever written on this subject. Bar none. There's nothing better. I don't care who hides behind what. Nothing better. And I pick up Hitler in January of 1833. Actually, it's not 1833. It's 1933. We pick up Hitler in the book in January of 1933, which effectively marks the end of the Weimar Republic. I then go into the decadence of the Weimar Republic, the Bauhaus milieu, and such in mass hysteria. And what I'm warning you is that this level of degeneracy always leads to an extreme result. It never ends well for the nation. 855-400-7282. Let's take some calls. WBOB. Michael, line one. Go ahead, please.
Hello. How you doing, Doc? Am I on the phone?
Michael, listen to me. I don't want to pull a Kavanaugh on you and get mad. No one asks me how I am on a national show. You don't know me. I don't know you. I'm not like the other people. What is it you want to say?
Well, women always have to be heard and always believed. Back in 1950...
Wait, sorry. Wait, you're saying women are always truthful?
Let me finish. I'm give you a prime example why they always have to be heard and believed. Back in the 1950s, in the bad old days, one woman stood up strongly, and she pointed a finger and said, I accuse you of sexual assault, Emmett Till. And maybe you can explain how that all worked out to the people.
I don't even know what you're talking about. What's the reference?
Emmett Till. Do you remember what happened to him when he was accused of...
I don't know who he is. Who's Emmett Till? Who is he?
He was a young black man in Mississippi. I think he was about 14 or 15 years old. And he was accused of saying something to a white girl. And they believed her, and they took him out and murdered him.
So what you're saying is what? Lying about a person can lead to death or killing? Well, they executed Kavanaugh in public. He can't even teach at Harvard Law anymore.
That women always have to be heard and always believed. Study that case.
All right, I won't. Thank you very much for the tip. I'll be sure to put it on the top of my list, not. Now, what happened in America after the Civil War? One paragraph, I'm sure you could take it. From peace to war, hysteria creates seismic shifts in America. Even after the Civil War, hysteria continued within these disunited states. Did you know that? In the South, anti-black, anti-North rage among vanquished Confederates led to the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. Other Southerners found themselves joining mob movements in support of Northern Democrats who remained pro-slavery. Chaos reigned, and greedy politicians used their influence and the military to crush the culture of a proud vanquished people in the South. And today, for the first time in a century and a half, the oppressed conservatives are fighting back, fighting progressive hysteria with righteous indignation and action. I don't think you'll read this anywhere else. I don't really think you'll find it anywhere else. That's why I wrote it. Now let's take another call on this. I hope this one knows more about what he's talking about and is a little more focused. We'll try the next one. WABC, Robin, line 5, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, just like you said, that it's going to turn worse. All this mass hysteria, this white guilt, everybody's a racist, everybody's a rapist. Something has to happen worse to knock all this out. And I hate to say it, this doesn't happen in third world countries. Like something like a light Sharia law would take over and wipe all of this out. This doesn't even happen in third world countries. It doesn't even happen in Muslim religious countries.
Well, what they're conducting is a race war against white males. It's a race war.
Yes. If you're born a white Christian straight male, you're automatically a rapist, a racist?
No, you're not. You're not automatically anything. You are what you make yourself to be. But what they're doing is using prejudice of the worst kind to destroy an entire race. And with the complicity of the government media complex, they are getting away with it. So every night on television, even if it's a white male reporter, you'll hear him now saying white male. You'll hear them snicker about just an old white male. And I am sick of it, frankly. How can anyone listening to this not understand this is a violation of civil rights and human rights and social rights?
Yes.
I hear what you're saying. At least you have an outlet left on the Savage Nation where all are welcome. Well, where does it end? You don't have to be a history buff or a genius to understand where this goes. If you keep vilifying a race and a gender that is not powerless, in fact, very powerful, if you keep picking on them and goading them and humiliating them and putting them down, there will be a reaction. The reaction will not be pretty. It will be a disaster. A few years ago, I wrote the book Stop the Coming Civil War because Obama started the race wars. You're not supposed to remember that. You're not supposed to say it. He started the war in this country, the race war. His entire M.O., the entire modus operandi of him and Eric Holder, was to turn race against race, sex against sex, class against class. And, of course, they cashed in their chips. Obama signed the $100 million Netflix deal. Obama signed an $80 million book deal. Obama stole a piece of parkland on a very expensive lakefront property to build a monument to himself. So if you understand that race baiting works and hating a race works real well, you will understand why those in the media continue to get away with character assassination and the death of a nation.
Savage.
Now, you said in the book, you mentioned you have a photographic memory.
Yes.
So, if you had to, the lineup you mentioned, and picking it out of a lineup, which of these mushrooms, orange mushrooms, would most represent the commander-in-chief of the United States military?
Jimmy Kimmel sponsors include Applebee's, Buick, Chase Bank, Claritin, Crown Royal, Dairy Queen, Delta Faucets, E-Trade, Gillette, Kia, Lexus, Liquid Plumber, Mitsubishi Cars, Nicorette, Nissan, Oscar Mayer, Slim Jim, Twix, and Volvo. None of those companies advertise on talk radio. None of those companies would have anything to do with you, the deplorables, either on the Savage Nation or, so far as I know, any other radio show that represents traditional American values, but they are killing themselves. Volvo, Buick, Kia, Mitsubishi, Applebee's, Chase Bank, Claritin, Crown Royal, Dairy Queen, Delta Faucets, E-Trade, Gillette, Lexus, Liquid Plumber, Nicorette, Nissan, Oscar Mayer, Slim Jim, Twix, and Volvo. They're tripping over themselves to throw money and begging to be on this man's show. You have the power. You have all the power. If you approve of that as evening television, act accordingly. If you disapprove of it, make a note and don't, and act accordingly as well. That's as simple as that. Remember, none of these companies want to reach you, the deplorable. They will not be on the Savage Nation. There is a blacklist against talk radio, and I'm on it. I've been on it for 25 years. Isn't it a miracle that I'm still here? I'm still here. Isn't it a miracle that I've had 5 or 6 best-selling books in a row without being on that degenerate psychotics show who thinks he's the gatekeeper for everything in America? Isn't it a miracle that you have your own mind? Isn't it a miracle that the lawgivers have no control over the media? I think it's all a miracle.
Savage.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. We're watching America in decline, where not only has there been a show trial against an innocent man, now that the FBI papers about to be released, they're not going to be released at all after they destroyed him in public. And then a group of Salem witch trial type girls at Harvard University Law School are conducting a petition campaign to prevent Kavanaugh from even teaching there based upon sexual harassment, even though he's been found innocent, no doubt. This is what goes on in a society that is in complete collapse. Now, before I say to you who wrote this, and you can't buy this book from me, woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness and his chambers by injustice. Oh, old Jeremiah must have seen the Democrat Party coming from a mile away. Actually, must have seen it coming from 5,000 years away. Jeremiah, woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness. Cory Booker, I'm speaking right to you. I'm speaking to you, Charles Schumer. I am speaking to you, all of you on the left. Woe unto you that buildeth your house by unrighteousness and his chambers by injustice. It's in the Bible. Now, you know, I wrote a book called Mass Hysteria, which will be out Tuesday, and I know you're going to love it and all of that. But I will tell you, religion is a form of mass hysteria. I'll admit that. In my opinion, religion can easily be seen as a form of mass hysteria. And there's so many millions and millions of people in America who are not religious in any way, don't even believe in God. They look at religious people and they mock religious people. They make jokes about religious people. Instead, they watch degenerate, sick drug addicts on television who are destroying the whole mind of the nation. And they think that that becomes the truth. The mocking becomes the truth. So I myself certainly believe in a creator for a number of reasons, which I won't go into right now. It's not your business. It's mine. It's my own belief system. And I believe religion has a stabilizing influence in the world today, with the exception of one religion, which uses, unfortunately, that religion to destroy others. There's only one religion on earth left, one still stuck in the 7th century, that unfortunately has too many adherents who are of such low mentality as to believe they should kill everyone else who does not follow that religion. And I don't have to fill in the blank. But when you have 1 billion people on the earth who practice that religion, the majority of whom do not believe that, you can't castigate the entire religion at the risk of turning the whole world into a cinder. So you have to come to understand that the majority, the great majority, the 99.9% of people in that religious world, that particular religion, who hate everyone else, are fundamentally just like you in almost every way, except perhaps a little less vile and a little less vulgar. Other than that, they're more or less just like you are. A little less vile, a little less vulgar, and their countries do not permit a degenerate to hold up a group of mushrooms and then ask a stripper from a pole dance which mushroom that he's holding up, this is on national television, most looks like the president's private parts. You wouldn't see that in Lebanon. You wouldn't see that in Iran. You wouldn't see that in Egypt. You wouldn't see that in Pakistan. You wouldn't see that in most decent nations on the planet. You would only see it in a nation run by the sickest people the world has ever seen. In any other time, they'd be locked up in the back wards of a mental hospital for their proclivity towards such degeneracy. Other than that, I have no opinion on a person's personal likes and dislikes. A little opinion, that's all. A little opinion. Your mother would like that? Your mother would think it's funny? Your father would have liked it? Your grandmother, your grandfather, you think they were out of it? They were stupid? You know, what is right sometimes is always right. What is right is always right. It doesn't make it wrong because a group of sickos came along and said it was wrong. It could be the sickos are wrong. But I'm getting too far afield right now, and I don't want to get too far afield or too preachy at the risk of offending those of you out there who are offended by certain thoughts. I'll stick to the basics, just the basic facts. You know, my horoscope was interesting today. The horoscope said, speak only in no more than 3 syllables or you'll lose your audience. I swear to God, because I've been told I'm ahead of the room, as they would say in a nightclub. You're too ahead of the room. The room's not following you. So it said, speak in no more than 3 syllables. So I'm trying to think about that. My last book was called God, Faith, and Reason. God, 1 syllable. Faith, 1 syllable. Reason, 2 syllables. Okay, that worked. That's why it was a bestseller. Trump's War. That's less than 3 syllables, bestseller. But now I'm a little worried because mass hysteria, that's bad. Mass is, okay, 1 syllable, a 1-syllable word. Hyster. Oh, my God. I could have blown it this time. It could be that my title is totally wrong for the mentality of America today. Look how many syllables are in the word hysteria. Hysteria. Oh, my God. 4 syllables in a word when I was warned not to use more than 3 syllables to get my ideas across? Well, we'll have to wait and see what happens on Tuesday when my Savage Army is wanted to go out into the bookstores with cell phone cameras, and you'll go to the front tables of all the major bookstores where my book will be, and you will video to make certain it's placed where the publisher paid to place it. And you will video clerks who say, I don't know what the book is, I don't know where it is, I can't find the book. You'll video them, and you'll send them to Central Station, the Savage Nation. You will video any vermin of the left who deface these books or throw them down on the floor. You'll video all of it. And if they break laws, we will prosecute them to the full extent of the law. So make sure you get facial recognition pictures that can be used by the police. I'm not serious. We are at war. This is a civil war that you are fighting right now. And the other side is warned that they're going to start killing. I don't want to say it over and over again, but, you know, words have consequences for all of us. Last week it was reported that Antifa has said during the day to their adherents and followers, make believe you're for everyone, that you're a nice person. At night, put on masks and go out and start to murder those most vocal on the opposition. In other words, start to kill the most visible conservatives in America. We now have senators who have to be ushered in and out of restaurants by police and Secret Service because the left is now on the march. And they are violent, and they are harming. Now, I have to make an admission right now, which I really carefully thought about whether to say this or not, but I think I'm obliged to say it. Remember I said to you yesterday that for the first time in many years, I will not be going to the San Francisco Columbus Day Parade and watch the Blue Angels fly over this Sunday. Do you know why? I mean, last year I went to Pinocchio Restaurant with my family and some friends, and I had a beautiful time. I watched the parade. I watched the Blue Angels. I loved it. But I was very cautious. I had 2 men with me to watch. Nothing happened. I've received some, let us say, cautions from individuals who know what's going on in the city to stay away and not be in the streets. And so, yes, I will proscribe my lifestyle. I am not a fool. It's not that important to me to go to the Columbus Day Parade, and I'm not going to be there. So I'm telling you what's coming. It's come to this town. It's not homeless doing it either, even though the homeless are doing just what I warned you about in San Francisco and other cities. Finally, the newspapers reported, some homeless are getting violent. Oh, some are getting violent. No, they're all victims. They're all victims in the street. Now when the liberals' cars are broken into and their wives are raped. Just this Saturday, North Beach, San Francisco, the district I used to love so much. Man walking with his son, white man, viciously attacked and his son viciously attacked by a so-called homeless person. I don't use the word homeless. I don't like the word homeless. It implies everyone's entitled to a home. So I don't see that anywhere. What do you mean entitled to a home? Where? Where's the entitlement from? You're entitled to what, a house on Pacific Heights next to Nancy Pelosi? What do you mean you're entitled to it? In this society, you work for what you get. So anyway, no, you got to be very careful now. Years ago, I warned you that many of these homeless are, A, criminals hiding in the homeless encampments. I was called every name under the sun. I told you the majority of them are mentally ill who belong in mental hospitals. You called me mean, a right-winger, or this or that. Hostile. You're all wrong. I'm warning you. It's only going to take more and more. It's going to take more and more of the so-called sheeple called liberals to be affected by the bums in the street until they wake up to the fact that they have created Frankensteins. But worse than that, I'm warning you what's coming. Worse than that. Here's what's worse than that. I've walked down the streets of San Francisco and I've seen bums picking lice off their clothing and their bodies. You say that's disgusting. I've seen them pick lice off their bodies and throw them in the street. I walk to the other side of the street. Let me tell you what diseases are lurking in the streets of San Francisco. Between the lice, the human feces, and the rats, you have an incubator for a major epidemic. And once this epidemic breaks out, who are you going to blame? Those of us who said round them up and give them the treatment that they so desperately need? Or are you going to blame yourself for being, oh, so tolerant?
Savage.
Welcome back to the Savage Nation. So maybe I'll watch the Blue Angels from a safer location than the streets of San Fernando. Well, I recommend you go. It's a beautiful thing to see. And if you're not a public figure and you are a left-wing fanatic who has destroyed the city, you will be put on a float and revered. Instead of being given hemlock, you will be given laurels. But since most of the people in this city would like to give me hemlock instead of laurels, I will choose not to be there. I'm going to be on the air, by the way, Monday, Columbus Day. A lot of businesses are closed. I'm here. I'm in business. Because I wouldn't miss that for all of the marijuana in China. I mean, all the marijuana in Salem, Oregon. I mean, all the marijuana in San Francisco. And Tuesday is the big day that I'm going to ask you to go out into the store and be the Savage Army. So here we are on the Savage Nation, and I want to tell you about hackers who've exploited a security vulnerability at Facebook. And they may have exposed the personal information for nearly 50 million accounts. They've stolen access tokens, and they can take over your account and many other people's accounts. And they're like digital keys that keep people logged in, so they don't need to re-enter their password every time. Well, Facebook says they fixed the vulnerability and informed law enforcement. Now, with your personal information from a data breach, criminals can open accounts, file tax returns, buy property. They could do anything with it in this connected world. All you need is one weak link and they're in. That's why I tell you to get LifeLock Identity Theft with the power of Norton Security. I have to give you the caveat that we've all heard. No one can stop every cyber threat, prevent all identity theft, or monitor transactions at all businesses. But new LifeLock with Norton is the best you could possibly ever get. LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE. What are you going to get? You're going to, first of all, get the best protection in the world. Then you're going to get 10% off your first year. And then you're going to get a $25 Amazon gift card with annual enrollment. So it's as simple as going to LifeLock.com, promo code SAVAGE. Terms do apply. 4 minutes and 15 seconds until the end of this hour. KSFO, John, line 5, you're on the Savage Nation.
Yeah, hi, Michael. So I'm calling about the whole old white man thing. I just don't get it. I am an old white guy. Never hurt anybody. I don't think I've done anything really great in my life besides raising my family and obeying the law. My dad was an old white guy, though. You know, he was part of the 45th Infantry Division that liberated Dachau. And I'm thinking of other old white men, you know, like Plato, Aristotle, Moses, Shakespeare, Newton, Mozart, Beethoven, Jefferson, Franklin, Lincoln, Einstein. I wonder what the world would be like without these old white dudes.
Well, remember I did a show many times on the inventions of the white male. I don't know if you heard that. It was very controversial. I did it over the years since 1998. The inventions of the dreaded white male. Maybe I could do it again for the armies of insane who think that it's okay to vilify an entire race and an entire sex. And I don't think it'll matter, though. Once hysteria starts, it doesn't end very well. It doesn't burn itself out immediately. It has to go through the virus has to almost spread before it's stopped. And the virus that started on the college campuses amongst the most fringe feminists, usually the sexually fringe, the most sexually fringed females on the campuses started this virus of hatred. Their hatred for men, their hatred for the patriarchy, their hatred for their fathers is the cause of this movement against white males, by the way. It didn't come out of the air. It wasn't incubated, by the way, by itself. It didn't start through spontaneous combustion. Exactly what they're doing to Kavanaugh. He is he's the representative, rather, of the white male that they hate so much. And they're out to get the patriarchy, not to get Kavanaugh. And so after they invented stuff about him, which is now probably going to come out to be 100% false, now you got a Cory Booker, a man who has disqualified himself from being a senator. As far as I'm concerned, he should be removed from the Senate because he has said he's into breaking the law. Cory Booker, a U.S. senator from New Jersey, is quoted as saying, Kavanaugh's guilt or innocence doesn't matter. He should be removed from the nomination. Now, that man is a lawgiver? What's Cory Booker? What is his background? What has he ever done that should disqualify him? Well, he's just disqualified himself. Here is a lawgiver who says he does not respect the law. Here is a lawgiver who says the law doesn't matter. Here is a lawgiver who says guilt or innocence doesn't matter. Here is a lawgiver who says condemn that man, guilty or innocent. Get rid of him. That's a U.S. senator who would be president. Who else is unqualified in these hysterical times? Who has disqualified themselves? Almost every Democrat has disqualified themselves from re-election. But since most of the population is either ignorant or drugged, there will be almost no ramifications. That's the real problem. You have a high population of stupid people, illegal immigrants who can't even read the English language, who've been permitted to vote even though they shouldn't vote. The qualifications I've been calling for include reading and writing English. How can you vote if you can't read what you're voting on? Then you're a machine voter like they had in Tammany Hall in New York for 100 years. Well, that's what we have in San Francisco, which is how Dianne Feinstein and the others maintain their power base. That's my opinion. Because if you were to go into the state of California itself, into the regions that produce the vegetables and the lumber and the factories, and you were to poll most tax-paying Californians, Dianne Feinstein would not be reelected. She never would have been elected in the first place. But she is not alone. The same applies to every Democrat in the power structure in San Francisco that rule the state from afar without any regard for the damage that they do to the average person.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.